Okay, we are going to write linear equations of the form y equals mx plus b today. So let's look at this first thing here. It says, recall, identify the initial value and constant rate of change. So this is something that we've been doing. Which one would you call the initial value? That's right, 40 is the initial value. It is a piece of information that does not have the variable behind it. How about the constant rate of change? The constant rate of change is our 50, which we nicknamed the croc. That is the number that's smushed up against the variable, smushed up against the x. So this 40 happens one time, this 50 happens every single time whatever x is happens. So let's compare these two equations. Y equals initial value plus croc x and y equals mx plus b. Look at these two and see how they look alike. Do you notice any similarities? First of all, this equation over here is called slope-intercept form. From today on, you will hear that quite a bit. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. That is something that you need to know. So let's look at how this equation and this equation look pretty much the same. Well, the initial value is the same thing as b. Notice that they're the ones that don't have an x behind them. So the initial value is the same as b. And the croc, the constant rate of change, is the same thing as m, because that's what's smushed up against the variable. So our croc, our constant rate of change, is the same as m. Okay, now just so you know, in this form, slope-intercept form, the m stands for slope, which is the same thing as constant rate of change, and the b stands for the y-intercept. And that is the same thing as the initial value. Okay, number 1 says identify the m and the b of y equals 2x plus 3. So let's see how it looks in comparison to y equals mx plus b, our slope-intercept form. And you can see that the m is the 2, because that's the number that's smushed up against the x. And the b is the 3, because that is the number that doesn't have a variable attached to it. It's the initial value. Okay, number 2, we're going to go backwards. It says you're given m is 5 and b is negative 3. We want to write the equation of the line. Well, if you're ever given the slope and the y-intercept, well, we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. We just have to fill in what they told us m was and fill in what they told us b was. So it will go y equals, what did they say the m was? They said m was 5, so that's our slope. Recopy the x. And then the b is a negative 3, so I could put plus a negative 3, or I could just put minus 3. Hi. Well, it'll take a while. Okay.
You'll call me about this student.
Okay. Hang on, everybody. I'll be back in just a second.
We did this together today for him to turn in.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk to you about services. So.
Okay, good. All right.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let's look at number 3 here. Number 3 says, for Texas residents, The average tuition per year at Texas A&M University costs approximately $6,952 for room and board, plus $137 per credit hour of classes. A says, write an equation in slope-intercept form for the tuition T for C credit hours. This is what we were doing before when we were trying to figure out the initial value and the constant rate of change. So when you look at this, what do you think the initial value is? The fact that they have to pay $6,952 for room and board, they're just going to pay that one time in that year. So that's their initial value. And remember, we learned just a second ago that initial value is the same thing as B. Okay, and then the constant rate of change, this is what happens over and over and over again. So that would be the fact that they're paying $137 per credit hour. So that is our constant rate of change. And we learned that that is the same thing as M, slope. Okay, so first I'm just going to try to write this in slope-intercept form, and then I'm going to make it fancy using the C and the T. So our constant rate of change, the slope, is 137, so y equals 137x, and then our initial value, our B, is a positive 6,952. I know before we were writing this in reverse order. We were writing the 6,952 first, then the plus 137x. Now we're just trying to get you to reverse that and keep it in this order, y equals mx plus b. Now, let's make it fancy. They want us to use T for tuition and C for credit hours. So our tuition is $137 per credit hour, plus the $6,952 that we have to pay in room and board. And if I want to fancy this up, put it in function notation, whatever letter I use here as well. Okay, B says, find the cost for a student taking 32 credit hours in 1 year. So if they're taking 32 credit hours, would the 32 go into the C, or would it go in place of the T of C? It would go into the C. So we're going to find the total tuition for taking 32 credit hours. As soon as I see that C, I slap parentheses down, I plug the 32 in there, recopy the plus 6,952, and then I just want to work this out. So I am going to use my calculator to figure it out, and I'm going to put it in just like I see it right there. 137 times 32 plus 6,952. And we get that our total tuition for the year is $11,336. Yikes! That's a lot of money. That's your tuition for taking 32 credit hours in the year. That is 1 year of college. Okay. Let's look at the next side. This one talks about a rental company on Padre Island, charges $8 per hour for a mountain bicycle, plus a $5 helmet fee. So it's $5 for a helmet, and it's $8 per hour for a mountain bicycle. So A says write a linear equation in slope-intercept form for the total rental cost for a helmet and bicycle for T hours. So which one do you think is the initial value? That's right, the $5 for a helmet, that's the initial value. They pay that one time. And then remember, today we learned that the initial value is the same thing as B. What do you think the constant rate of change is? The constant rate of change is the fact that they're paying $8 every single hour. So that's our constant rate of change. And today we learned that that is the same thing as M. Okay, so first I'm going to try to write this in slope-intercept form, and then I'm going to use the letters that they suggest. So our constant rate of change is the M, so it would be y equals 8x plus the initial value, which is 5. Okay, let's fancy this up. It wants to know about the total rental cost for a helmet and a bicycle for T hours. So I want to know that cost, C, for running this for T hours. So I'm going to use a T instead of the X. And if I want to put it in function notation, it would be C of T. For right now, I'm just going to leave it like this, but I want you to know that function notation would look like this. C of T equals 8T plus 5. Just so you get used to seeing it both ways. Okay, B says, find the cost of a 2-hour rental. So if we rent it for 2 hours, where would we put the 2? We are going to put the 2 into the T, because that's the time and hours that we want to rent it. So it would be C equals 8 times 2 plus 5. This one's so easy, we don't need a calculator. What would you get if you took 8 times 2 plus 5? 16 plus 5? $21 would be the cost if we rented our helmet and our bicycle for 2 hours. Okay, number 5. Suppose you have already saved $50 towards the cost of a new television. You plan to save
I got one.
Thank you. You plan to save $5 more each week for the next several weeks. Write an equation for the total amount T that you will have W weeks from now. Okay, so let's look at this. What do you think the initial value is? The fact that you have already saved $50. That's our initial value, which is the B, the y-intercept. Okay, what's the constant rate of change? The constant rate of change is the fact that we're going to save $5 more each week. Every single week, that's what we're doing. So that's our constant rate of change, which today we learned is the M, the slope. Okay, so first let's try to write our equation in slope-intercept form, getting used to that, and then I'll switch letters. So it would be y equals M, which is the $5 every single hour, or every week, sorry about that, plus B, the initial value, which is 50, which is what we already saved. Now I'm going to make it fancy using the letters. So it wants to know, write an equation for the total amount T that you will have W weeks from now. So it would be T equals 5W plus 50. We're saving $5 every single week plus the 50 we saved initially, and that will be our total amount. Okay, D says find the total amount saved in 7 weeks. So where am I going to put this 7? That's right there in the W, into weeks. So it will be T equals 5 times 7 plus 50. 5 times 7 is 35. 35 plus 50 is 85. They will have saved $85 in 7 weeks' time. Woo! We are in the money now. Okay, last one. Petra is starting a jewelry business. She has $200 to make jewelry for her business. If each bead costs $12, write the equation that describes A, the amount of money remaining after she buys in beads. Does she have enough money to buy 13 beads? Okay, so we have a few things to do here. So first of all, she has $200 to make jewelry for her business, and each bead costs $12. Which of those is the initial value? The fact that she has $200, that's her initial value, which is what letter? B, the y-intercept. What's the constant rate of change? The fact that each bead costs $12, that is our constant rate of change. And what letter did we learn that that's the same as? That's right, M, slope. Okay, so let me write our equation in slope-intercept form. And what would it look like? Y equals 12x plus 200. Now, let's just stop and look at this equation and see if you think that you agree with me. She has $200 to make jewelry for her business, and each bead costs $12. So let's look at what I wrote here. this $200, that's the money she has. So it's a positive 200, that sounds good. And each bead costs $12. So do you think that this should be a positive 12? Nope. If the bead costs $12, that $12 is coming out of her pocket every time she uses a bead. So it's going to be a negative 12. Now let's try to put in the letters that they suggested. It says, write the equation that describes A, the amount of money remaining after she buys in beads. So A equals negative 12 times N, because you're paying $12 every time you have a bead, plus the 200 that she had to begin with for her jewelry business. Okay, and then the final part says, does she have enough money to buy 13 beads? So where do you think that I would put the 13 in my problem if she has 13 beads she wants to buy? Well, we're going to put 13 into the N, because N is standing for beads. So it would be A equals negative 12 times 13 plus 200. Okay, this one I'm going to use the calculator for. So let me put that in. Negative 12 times 13 plus 200, and I get 44. So the amount she has remaining is $44. So, does she have enough money? Yes. She started off with $200. She's paying $12 for every bead, and when she buys the 13 beads, then that means that she still has $44 left to spend. So, yes, she has enough money. She has $44 left. Okay, so this is very similar to what we've been doing with the initial value and the constant rate of change. It's just we're starting to think of them in terms of other letters with the M and the B, and then learning how to put them in the slope-intercept form, the y equals mx plus b. All right, we're done. Smiley face. Thank you.